Hi there, thank you so much for joining me. This is Julie DiMatteo from thepaperpixie.com, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And in today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this really beautiful Impossible card. And I'd love to give credit to fellow demonstrator Dawn Griffith for the idea. And I wanted to show you a little trick in my video on how to cut this designer series paper without having a lot of waste. So let's go ahead and get started. I can show you how easy this is to make. First, we're going to start with a piece of old olive cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, a typical A2 size card base. And on the 4 1/4 inch side, we're going to score this straight down the middle at 2 1/8. Then I'm going to rotate it to the 5 1/2 inch side. And the first score line I'm going to make is at 2 3/4. But I'm going to stop at that horizontal score line that we just made. So 2 3/4, stopping at the horizontal score line. Then I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees to the other side of the 5 1/2 inch side. And we're going to score this at 1 inch, stopping at that middle score line, and 4 1/2 inches, stopping at that middle score line. So that's what it looks like here. I'm going to show you a little template of what we just did. So we did the center score line at 2 1/8. Then we did the center here at 2 3/4, stopping at that horizontal score line. Then we scored at 1 inch and 4 1/2 inches, both stopping at the horizontal score line. Now what I'm going to do next is to cut up these little half score lines. That's indicated by this thicker line here. There's nothing to do with this middle score line right now. That was really just there to tell us where to stop with these other score lines. I am not going to fold and burnish on these score lines. I'm literally just using them to make the cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up these little half score lines. Okay, so now that that cutting is done, I want you to see where those cuts were made. All we're going to do, and this is kind of where the optical illusion comes in, is I'm going to flip this left side of the paper. So I'm just going to go like this and fold on that score line here. I'm going to do the same thing with the center panel and fold that backwards. So the only part of the score line that we're folding on is this center section here. Now I'm just going to come in and reinforce those score lines with my bone folder. And that is the basics of that Impossible card. So again, I started with these two little 1 inch sections facing down, and I twisted the left side. How cool is that? Your recipient's going to look at this card and think, oh my goodness, how did they do that? All right, now let me show you a trick. This is that beautiful Share What You Love Specialty Designer Series paper. It's pearlized. I hope you can see that on the video. And this piece measures 3 1/4 by 4 inches. Now I'm going to bring in the Stampin' Trimmer, and what I love about Stampin' Up! Stampin' Trimmer is the fact that they have a full ruler all the way down to the 1/16 inch increments along the cutting arm here. And we're going to utilize that to help us cut this paper with little to no waste. So let me show you really quick what we're going to be doing. It's kind of making these Tetris-like shapes. The crossed out area in the middle, that's the only waste we're going to have here. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to line up the right side of this paper to 3/4 inch along the right side of the Stampin' Trimmer. Anything from 1 1/4 inches and less, I like to use the right side of the ruler on the Stampin' Trimmer. So this is lined up at 3/4. The next thing I'm going to do is line up my cutting blade at 1 7/8. And you're not going to be able to see that very well in the video, but when you're cutting this yourself, it'll be very easy to see. So 1 7/8, and I'm going to cut down. Okay, so we've got this lined up at 3/4. I took the cutting blade to 1 7/8, and then I cut downwards. Now I'm going to rotate 180. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So lining up at 3/4, putting our cutting blade at 1 7/8, and cutting down. So we've just made those two cuts. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to line up the left side at 1 7/8. So now we're using this side of the ruler on the Stampin' Trimmer at 1 7/8. And I'm only going to cut this center section. Now these little strips that we made are 3/4 of an inch in width. So that's where I'm going to put the cutting blade. I'm going to start it at 3/4 and I'm going to cut and stop it at 2.5 is where that stopping point is. And you'll see that that top piece is going to be separated, okay? This one is cut to the right size. We'll put that to the side, but this one needs a little bit of a trim. So I'm just going to rotate that, lining up that left edge at 1 7/8. And then again, I'm going to put this at 3/4 and I'm just going to cut down and remove that sliver. And that's the only excess we're going to have. So super easy way to use the Stampin' Trimmer to maximize the cuts in your paper. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces down. All right, easy enough. Now, to give this Impossible card a little bit of stability, I've cut a strip of old olive cardstock that measures 1 inch by 5.5 inches, and then a strip of the Share What You Love Specialty Designer Series paper that measures 3/4 of an inch by 5.25 inches. And I'm going to layer those on top of each other. And we're going to glue that down right across the center here. Now, there's a little trick to make sure that we don't get glue where we don't want it to go. So I'm just going to flip this upside down. And then that way I know to keep glue away from this section here. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue. Then I'm going to go ahead and flip it. And we'll put that down. And now that card has much more stability. You could also do the same thing with a strip back here, but it's not needed. Next, I've got a piece of Rich Razzleberry that measures 2 inches by 3 3/8 inches, and a piece of Whisper White that measures 1 7/8 inches by 3 1/4 inches. These pieces are going to layer right here on the card, but first I want to do quick stamping. And I'm going to use the Stamparatus, and a little trick here, I'm just going to grab a stamp set I have laying around and put that underneath the clear plate here. It just gives me a little bit of leverage as I'm inking up that stamp set. And this is the Statement of My Heart stamp set. And I'm going to go ahead and line this piece of Whisper White up here in the corner. I'm going to ink up the sentiment here. And there we go, perfectly stamped. Okay, now I'm going to layer that on the Rich Razzleberry. Then we'll layer that on our card panel. All right, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a ribbon embellishment here. This is the Rich Razzleberry Velvet Ribbon. It is beautiful. I'm just going to do a little bit of like a support ribbon here. Go ahead and cut that end off. Then I'm going to grab a mini glue dot, and we're just going to cheat a little bit to get that support ribbon to keep its shape. So I'm just going to sneak a little glue dot under there. Okay, so we got a glue dot kind of holding it in place. Then I'm just going to tie a little Whisper White Baker's Time bow around the center there. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to stick some glue dots on the back of this ribbon. And then we'll pop that right on the front of our Impossible card. And there we go. How easy was that to make an Impossible card? Now what's nice about this is this will fold flat and fit in our medium envelopes, perfect to send in the mail. And the recipient can put this card on display to admire it for a long time to come. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next video tutorial. If you're interested in purchasing any of the Stampin' Up! Products I used today, they'll be linked in the description. And I'll also include a link to my detailed blog post with all project measurements, details, and templates. I'd love to have you come visit me at thepaperpixie.com, where I post projects every weekday to inspire you. I have options to subscribe to both my daily blog updates as well as my monthly newsletter, and I'd love to welcome you as a new subscriber. You can shop with me anytime at thepaperpixie.com/shop. And if you're interested in earning a discount on all of your Stampin' Up! Purchases, I'd love to have you join my team of Paper Pixies, and you can purchase the starter kit at thepaperpixie.com/join. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Take care. Bye.